The year is 1919. The world is recovering from the deadliest war in human history, a war that claimed over 16 million lives. The Great War, as they called it, was supposed to be the war to end all wars, but instead it set the stage for an even greater catastrophe, World War II. And it all began with a single document, the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was not just a peace agreement, it was a punishment. Germany, blamed entirely for the war, was forced to accept humiliating terms. The treaty stripped Germany of its colonies, forced them to pay enormous reparations, and restricted their military to a mere 100,000 soldiers. But the worst of all, the infamous Article 231, the War Guilt Clause, which placed full responsibility for World War I on Germany's shoulders. The consequences were devastating. Germany's economy crumbled under the weight of war debt. Hyperinflation turned the German mark into worthless paper. Imagine going to buy a loaf of bread and finding that its price had doubled in just a few hours. People were burning money because it was cheaper than firewood. Desperate and humiliated, the German people looked for someone to blame. And that's when a new voice emerged, promising hope, strength, and revenge. Adolf Hitler. Born in Austria, Adolf Hitler was a soldier in World War I. He saw Germany's defeat as a betrayal, a stab in the back. He joined the small Nazi party, quickly rising to power with fiery speeches that blamed Germany's problems on the Treaty of Versailles, communists, and most of all, the Jewish population. In 1923, he attempted a coup de beer hall putsch, but failed and was imprisoned. It was during this time that he wrote Mein Kampf, a book outlining his extreme ideology and his vision for a new Germany, one that would expand its territory and dominate the world. Then came the Great Depression of 1929. The stock market crashed, economies collapsed, and unemployment soared. Countries like the USA, Britain, and France struggled, but Germany suffered the most. Millions were jobless, and the government seemed powerless. In this chaos, Hitler and the Nazis offered simple answers. Germany was betrayed. We need strong leadership. We need revenge. By 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within months, he dismantled democracy, silenced opposition, and declared himself Führer, absolute ruler. Germany was now a dictatorship, and the world had no idea what was coming next. Meanwhile, other dictators were rising. In Italy, Benito Mussolini had established a fascist government. In Japan, militarists sought to expand their empire. Together, they formed the Axis powers, an alliance that would change. Meanwhile, other dictators were rising. In Italy, Benito Mussolini had established a fascist government. In Japan, militarists sought to expand their empire. Together, they formed the Axis powers, an alliance that would change. Hitler, Mussolini, and Japan's leaders had one goal: conquest. While Britain and France hoped to avoid another war, the Axis powers were planning something far more sinister. Hitler's first move: expansion. In 1938, he annexed Austria in what he called the Anschluss, without firing a single bullet. Then he turned to Czechoslovakia, demanding the Sudetenland. Britain and France, desperate to avoid war, followed a policy of appeasement, allowing Hitler to take the land in exchange for a promise of peace. Peace in our time, declared British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, but that peace was a lie. Then on September 1st, 1939, Hitler launched his most daring move yet. German tanks stormed across the Polish border in a brutal tactic known as Blitzkrieg, lightning war. This was the final straw. Britain and France had no choice. 2 days later, they declared war on Germany. World War II had officially begun. But this was just the beginning. The world was about to witness a war more destructive than anything seen before. In the next episode, we dive into the Blitzkrieg strategy, how Hitler's war machine crushed Europe in months, and how Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany.